Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Chief, to you and to all of our firefighters and first responders who are out there on the ground right now. There are literally thousands of brave men and women who are fighting fires across the country as we sit here in this hearing room, and we want to say thank you for your service. Right now in New Mexico, as my colleague from New Mexico mentioned, there are thousands of acres that are burning up as we speak. We've got a fire in Mescalero in southern New Mexico, a massive fire in the Gila Mountains, a fire just broke out in the Jemez Mountains. We've got a fire in the Bosque in Valencia County in Las Lunas in my district, and massive flooding in Ruidoso and Mescalero. And we have communities up north that are still recovering in Mora from the largest fires in New Mexico history. And it's very clear. If you live out west right now, it's very clear. Fires are getting bigger, more intense, more difficult to contain, and we need good science, technology, tools, and human bodies on the ground to be able to prevent, plan for, and respond to these fires. And so I'm grateful to have a bipartisan hearing on this issue because it's just going to keep getting worse. And Chief Muncie, I was struck in your testimony, you talked about, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart, that most people would be surprised to know that our firefighters don't have the same tools at their disposal that many in the American public are used to having just on their phones in terms of being able to geolocate things, to understand what's happening in real time. Talk to us a little bit more about what tools do you think would help dramatically increase the safety and ability of firefighters on the ground to respond?
I addressed a lot of those in my written testimony and my comments earlier, so I'd like to redirect on what is the processes need to be changed, what's the bureaucracy that needs to drop, what's the leadership that's involved to get these tools to the firefighters. Again, we need common operating pictures across all agencies for planning to prevent the bad stuff from happening. And then when the response occurs, we need to have an efficient response. We need to use all available detection technologies. We need to have private-public partnerships. Today, California State, CAL FIRE, does an amazing job with wildfire, heads and tails better than the U.S. Forest Service or BLM. Today, local government is far exceeding the federal government on the technology that's adopted. Again, I pay for the Angeles National Forest and San Bernardino National Forest to use a common operating picture called Intera so that they can show where their units are in relationship to this national disaster. Without that, those are the only two forests in the nation that have the technology. They would not have that technology. They can't purchase it, back to what I said. The purchasing, the bureaucracy, the lack of interagency adoption of technology, this needs to be centralized. There needs to be leadership that opens the doors, that allows our firefighters to have the tools that they need, the tools that they have at home while they're on the job.
I could not agree more, absolutely. And I think that speaks to interagency coordination, interoperability of these systems. A lot of people don't realize that our first response systems don't even talk to each other. So this is something I've been very passionate for years. My background as a water resources manager, it's why I have a bipartisan water data bill. It's why the federal government plays a key role in helping to provide the monitoring systems, the coordination. As you're stating, local governments are far ahead in some cases they're not. And Dr. Howard, looking at the GAO's report on this, I'm struck by, many people don't realize that the data collection and systems that support the kinds of tools that the chief are talking about come from a wide range of different agencies. We're talking NOAA, we're talking even military resources are used, satellites, as well as USGS. And so I guess what is particularly strange to me is that we're having a bipartisan hearing, we're hearing from folks on the ground, and we have a proposed budget that's literally working its way through Congress that eviscerates the monitoring, science, research, and technology development programs that would develop these tools. Could you talk about why it's important to fund those programs and how, based on GAO studies, we can make them more interoperable and help support local entities on the ground?
We do know that we need data from a variety of sources, and unfortunately, they do not always talk to each other. They're not always interoperable. They often are collected in different formats. They're stored in different formats, and it takes a lot of time and often a lot of expense to get the AI ready so they can be used together in a model. So that's one of the data gaps we have that hinders the advancement of these tools, these sorts of tools. of tools. We do firmly agree that the technologies do not operate in a vacuum, that there is an entire system in place around them. So you could have a beautiful tool that tells you where hazardous fuel reduction will be most effective, but if the agencies, both at the federal, state, local, tribal levels, don't have the resources to conduct that hazardous fuels reduction, the model doesn't do you a lot of good. And the same is true for early detection. If a model spots a wildfire, but the resources are elsewhere, or there aren't sufficient firefighters to respond to that early detection, then it hasn't done us a lot of good.
Thank you very much. And I'll just say, you know, we're talking artificial intelligence, satellites, remote sensing programs, drones, dashboards, geospatial data, 5G, quantum sensing, large computer systems, modeling. Guess what? All of that is funded by the United States government. And unfortunately, the FY26 budget, which our colleagues are working on marking up right now, guts many of those programs. So if we want our firefighters to be safe, if we want people to be able to communicate, if we want to be able to respond to fires, don't cut the budget. And with that, I yield back.